Hello and welcome to Cinderblock Sports. I'm your host, John O'Donnell, and this is a replay of our June 15th show, which featured Ryan Sparks, who is competing in the Golden Tee World Championships this Saturday in Las Vegas. Ryan is one of the top 20 players in the world at Golden Tee. Golden Tee is a very popular bar top game that you see in bars and restaurants across the United States. You play a game of golf, virtual golf, with a trackball, and most people fail to understand how good you can get at this game. Most of us dabble in the game of golf. We know par to be a good score. But in the game of Golden Tee, the top players will regularly shoot 30 below par and always shoot in that 25 to 28 under par range. We were lucky to be joined by Ryan. He explained to us how that's possible, the format for the World Championships, and kind of the level of competition he's going to be facing in Las Vegas this weekend. So enjoy the interview and give us a listen at Cinderblock Sports. You can find us at cinderblocksports.com, on iTunes, on Spotify, on Overcast. You can also follow us on Twitter at Cindersports, and you can always email the show at cinderblocksports@gmail.com. Thanks again for listening, and enjoy the interview.
And now, here is your host, John O'Donnell.
And welcome back to Cinderblock Sports. I am still John O'Donnell, joined by my co-host and producer, Aaron the Voice Quebec.
The Voice.
And we are joined by Ryan Sparks, and I will get to why he's here in a second. But first, let me introduce Golden Tee and the video golf game that we've all seen at our local bar or watering hole. We've all said, man, I'm really good at that game. Well, you're not as good as the guy I'm about to bring on, because he is competing in the World Championships in Las Vegas next weekend. And those World Championships will be aired, not live, but in highlight form on ESPN later in the summer. So, again, we are joined by Ryan Sparks. He is in the World Championships for the Golden Tee Championships. And Ryan, how are you today?
Don, I am doing awesome. How are you guys?
I am good. Let's start with the question that every guy listening to the show needs to understand. Because everybody says they're good at Golden Tee. They're going to see that machine in the bar and they're going to say, oh, I'm really good at that. But what is your average game score, and what is your handicap in Golden Tee?
So my handicap right now is hovering around a plus 29.2. So what that's going to average out to is around 29 strokes under par. My average is a little bit different. Handicap is calculated funny by Golden Tee, but my average is going to hover around the 27.5 to 28.5 range on this year's courses.
And for everyone that's now yelling at their radio and phones and iPads saying there's no way anybody shoots 26, 27 under a round, which is 18 holes. It's not like it's a different version of golf. How does somebody shoot that low a score on a consistent basis?
So it's amazing how often I get this question. It's, well, you know, I shot a 30 under par. Well, how do you, on how many holes? 18 holes? It's like, yeah. So how do you understand it? There's something called Golden Tee par. Right? So Golden Tee par, when you think about it this way, par one or hole one is typically a non-drivable par four. So Golden Tee par on that hole would be a birdie, so a 3. If it's a par 5, Golden Tee par is almost always an eagle. So that's a 3. So that puts you, if hole one is a non-drivable par 4 and hole 2 is a non-drivable par 5, then you should be sitting 3 under after 2 holes. In our world, that's what we call Golden Tee par. All of the par 3s are birdie holes. So no matter what the setup, no matter what the distance, no matter what the look is, if it looks really hard to most players, Golden Tee par is still a birdie on that. So if you add that up, usually there's, 5 par 5s on a course, and they might be drivable. So it might be a double eagle hole. There might be 4 or 5 drivable par 4s. So you should eagle those holes, and then you mix in the rest of them. Typical quote-unquote Golden Tee par on a course is anywhere from 28 to 30 under.
Yeah.
So if you shoot what you're supposed to shoot on every hole, so the first course is Catadreas Beach this year. So Golden Tee par on that course can range from 29 under to 32 under. So if you do what you're supposed to do on every hole, that's how you get that number.
Yeah, and that's exactly the great point. And for those who don't know, I play Golden Tee as well. And Ryan, you and I are two of the, I would say, the old dogs in the game. I've played for 15, 20 years. I know you've played.
Nice way of putting it.
Well, as long as Demko's around, we're not dinosaurs, right? As long as Demko's around, I got somebody else older than me, so we'll just keep him in the game. The point being, we've been around a long time, and that's how I explain it. Par, I always tell people, start with negative 18. Because there are 18 birdies. I mean, every hole can be birdied with no problem at all by an average Golden Tee player. Then you start getting into Golden Tee Par, which is the world you live in, the 27s to 30s. So I hope people understand exactly how good that you guys are at this game. And to that point, can you explain the qualifying process for the Worlds and how you specifically were qualified to play?
Yep. So this year, incredible technologies to maker of Golden Tee. They introduced something called events mode. So for the average Golden Tee player, when you check in, you pick your number of players and then you pick your game mode. So online for prizes, online, or events is on there now. So what events is a week-long subset of prize play. So it's a different mode of Golden Tee. What it was this year was they separated it into 12 different weeks. And you got one course for that whole week, and then they took your best 5 games on that course. So, if you shoot, for example, 5 30-unders, your score for that week would be negative 150. The week I did it was on a course called Beals Creek or Bells Creek, depending on how you want to pronounce it. So, again, Golden Tee Par on that can average from 29 to 31 under par. My qualifying score for that week was negative 157. Wow. So I shot 2 32-unders and 3 31-unders. That put me at 157. So I finished in the top 5 that week, which got me the spot to the World Championships. And there was 12 different weeks. So, there was, what does that equal?
60.
So 64 qualifiers.
I got a math question right, Eric.
We have no math.
First time I get a math question on the show. And
it was my understanding that there would be no math.
The tagline of this show, I'm terrible at math. That's why I do sports. So the point being, there were a lot of people competing. You are one of the top, you're more than one of the top 60, but you're in that bracket. I think there's total 72. There were other ancillary qualifiers, but you're going to Las Vegas. Explain to me that process. And as you, who's somebody who shoots or can shoot 30, negative 30, what are your chances of winning this thing? And if not, why not? Well, how much better are the players that you're going to be facing? I mean, how could there be somebody that much better than you, Ryan?
Yeah, so backing up a little bit, what it is we go out there on Saturday, and there's 74 of us that are qualified or 72 right now, two getting qualified on site. So we're going to go out there and we're going to play a 5-course qualifier, and then they're going to take the 32 best scores of that 5-course qualifier, and they're going to put those 32 people into match play. And then we're going to play off, well, I say we, hopefully I make the cut, are going to play off for $30,000 in a double elimination tournament. So what are my chances? Any given day, right? You don't need to be the best player in the world. You just need to be the best player that day. I would say that I am a long shot. Last year I made the cut and I went 2-2, so I finished in the 13 to 16 range. We don't play off for 13th, 14th, or anything like that. So there's realistically, John, 6 people that are going to win this tournament. And one of them is right there in your backyard, Andy Haas, who is one of my good friends and the guy I consider the greatest of all time. And he is certainly one of them. But, anybody can get beat. Anybody can get beat on any given day. And, if you catch fire and you get in that zone, then you can make some noise, and nerves play a big factor in this. That's a lot of money at stake, $30,000. So if somebody just gets a little fat fingered on a putt or something like that, or shaky hands when they're trying to chip in a hole and they miss, that can be the difference. What's the difference between them and me? Is somebody who's probably in the 30 to 40 range of players in the world, is consistency. So they've been doing this at a very high level for a long time. And, I've been doing it at a medium to high level for a long time as well, just not on their level. So, when I might overcut a ball into the wind, or miss a putt because nerves got in the way, or hit a chip too hard and it rolls over to the other side of the green, and then I missed a comeback putt. Those guys don't do that,
right.
And they see shots that a lot of us don't see, just because of the amount of games that they play. And, that's the difference between them and me. Just consistency.
We're joined by Ryan Sparks, who will be competing in the Golden Tee World Championships. And I did not mean to at all, down your level of play. I've played many games with you. You are one of the best players I've ever played with. I've also played with Andy, and you're right. It's consistency. I mean, you and I are different levels of consistency, and then he's just another level. But that doesn't make you any less great. You're a great player, and I wish you the best of luck. And hopefully, you get up in that 8 to 10 range instead of that 13 to 16 range this year.
Don't let Andy forget that I'm 1-0 against him all time. Let Andy forget that.
I'll make sure to relay that message to him. One last thing here before we let you go, because this has been a big issue, I think, the shot meter. And let me just explain real quick what that is. It's a new, I think it's maybe the second year now, but when you pull the ball back and you hit it, there is now a meter on the screen that shows what you did, both in terms of angle, backwards and forwards, which is important for shaping a shot, but also in terms of speed, how hard you hit the ball. Now, if you're the second player in a match play situation and you could see that information, okay, that is going to be present in the World Championships. They're going to have that meter on. In tournaments, that's an option. You can turn it on, you can turn it off. That's going to be on. So, Ryan, from your perspective, do you like the shot meter? Do you think it's a big advantage? And how do you feel about it being on during the World Championships?
So I've played a lot of matches with a shot meter, and to the best of my knowledge, and there might be more, John, but to the best of my knowledge, there is one guy in the world that turns it off. And he's one of the best players in the world. To me, I don't see the issue with it. It's a great teaching tool. If we're playing with a 18 handicap in a bar and they want to learn what you're doing, that's where the shot meter comes into play. When you get to a certain level of Golden Tee, the shot meter shouldn't come into play, in my opinion. I don't even look at it. I don't even watch my opponent hit. Yeah. Because I don't want to get, when I see a hole, I formulate a plan, right, and that's what I'm going with. And if I look at somebody else doing it, it's just going to throw everything off. So I don't see it as a big deal. I think it's a great teaching tool. ESPN's going to put together a 30-minute presentation on this later in the summer, and they want to get the word out. And this is how people are hitting these shots, so we can, breed the next generation of Golden Tee players, so to speak. So I don't see the issue with it, and I think it's a great teaching tool, and I think they should leave it on.
Well, we'll see how that translates on the TV, and I think ESPN is going to do a great job. Again, Ryan, thank you for all your time. Appreciate you joining the show. Best of luck in Las Vegas, and hopefully we'll have you back on after you either win or come in the top 3 next week. Thanks again, Ryan. Real appreciate your time.
Yeah. And I appreciate it. And if you guys are out in Las Vegas on Friday, they're qualifying 2 people on site in the closest to the pin tournament. So hope to see you guys there. Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And that was Ryan Sparks, a good friend of mine, a great Golden Tee player. And as he mentioned, we have Andy Haas, who is another friend of mine who is the best in the world, I think. And there is one player who hates the shot meter, who has been very vocal about ESPN's decision to keep the shot meter on. And again, his argument would be, if I can see you, Aaron, hit your shot, and I can see the angle in which you hit it, the speed in which you hit it, and how you pulled back, then I have an advantage hitting my shot. Ryan's counter argument to that is somewhat of how I feel, which is when I see a hole, I have my plan in place. But I'm a 25 handicap. I'm not a world championship level player. And the gentleman, Mark Stenmark, who is a world championship player, his opinion should matter. And so we actually hope to have Mark on the show. He wasn't able to join us today, but as the Golden Tee Championships unfold, we hope to have more guests. And again, check it out. GoldenTee.com is going to televise the event. ESPN will have a special. And if you've ever seen that game in the bar and you want to see the best in the world play it, now is your chance. So we're going to move on. We have not covered the Stanley Cup yet, but we're going to, because the Stanley Cup happened, and championships should be celebrated, no matter what sport they're in. And even though the Stanley Cup is in Canada, it counts for 3/4 of a championship. It also is a championship. It's one of the most treasured championships, really. And I think that's important to understand. The Stanley Cup has a tradition that I absolutely love, which is every player on the team And every member of the staff of the team get the cup for a day to spend it how they wish. If you ever want to see some entertaining stories, go check out what these people do with the Stanley Cup. There are pictures of babies in the cup. There are pictures of beer in the cup. I'm sure there were other things in that cup too. Point is, it is a cool tradition. We've seen it on different TV events. People have fun with it, and they should. So a storied championship. And the way the Stanley Cup ended or happened really needs to be talked about. St. Louis won their first Stanley Cup championship ever. They are the last of the original 12. Now, bear with me, hockey fans. I get it. There was an original 6. There also was a second 6. And St. Louis was part of that. And they are now the last of that original 12 or second 6 to win Stanley Cup. They were in last place January 2nd. Last place.
Dead last.
So
the whole league, not just their conference, the whole league.
The whole shooting match, they were last. They were at the time plus 4,000, 40-1, which ironically are Ryan Sparks' odds to win the Golden Tee World Championship. Ryan, if you're listening, you have the same odds as the St. Louis Blues, who just won the Stanley Cup Championship. It is kismet. I call it now. Ryan Sparks win the World Championship. And to that end, for the Blues, there were multiple tickets on Facebook that show a $250 bet paying off $100,000.
Yep.
So, what did the Blues do? Well, they fired their coach. If you're in last place in January in hockey, you get fired. So they bring in an interim coach from their minor league system to whatever, let's land this ship the best we can. He said, you know what? I'm bringing my goaltender with me. I'm bringing Jordan Binnington. Sorry, everybody. And Jordan Binnington is a very good goalie. So good that they won the Stanley Cup. They were underdogs all the way. In the finals, Binnington gets pulled. He bounced back after that loss with a big win. And that happened every time. Binnington gets beat, he wins. Binnington gets beat, he wins. All the way through Game 7. Beaten Game 6 at home, win Game 7 on the road. And the Blues become one of the first North American teams ever to have a losing record at home. They were 6-7. They were 10-3 on the road. It's also a trend we saw in the NBA Finals. Road teams in the NBA Finals this year, 5-1. Home field advantage may not be what it used to be. I remember, especially in hockey, home ice advantage in that sport being huge. It's never been that big in baseball. Football, I think, it still remains very large. But basketball and hockey, at least at the finals this year, it was not a big factor. The Blues did nothing on the power play. And that's important because in hockey, when you have a man advantage, you're supposed to score goals. They didn't. And you're not supposed to win if you can't score on a power play. The reason that Boston was so good all year and into the playoffs and a huge favorite was that they had the best power play in hockey. The Blues had the worst. Didn't seem to matter. So what happened? How did this happen? We get to Game 7, huge underdog, but it's in Boston. Boston, you would think, is confident. They were a big favorite. How did they lose Game 7? Well, they did everything you're supposed to do. They shot the puck at the rookie goalie. And Jordan Binnington looked like he was on a slip and slide. I don't think he knew where the puck was. He was all over the place in the first period. And he stopped them all, including a power play 3 minutes into the game where they fired 6 shots, Boston did, and scored none.
That Game 7 performance by Binnington reminded me a lot. You might appreciate this. I might be insulting you right now, and if I do, I apologize.
Okay.
But he reminded me of a young Dominic Hasek in that performance.
I think it's fair.
Because you watched him stop pucks that Patrick Waugh couldn't stop.
Yeah. Well, I would say this. I think Dominic Hasek was intentionally a human slinky.
Yes.
That's how he played goalie.
He had no spine.
Yeah, that's how he played goalie. Binnington's not that way. He just was in Game 7. He was really out of sorts. That was not intentional. It worked. It's great that it worked, but he didn't want to be that way.
Right.
He was having a lot of vulcanized rubber shot in his direction.
Right.
Stopped them all. And then, who blinked? Tuukka Rask, the goalie for Boston.
He blinked a lot.
He let in a decent goal. The first goal of the game, again, they only had 4 shots in the first period. 2 of them went in for the Blues. And the first goal, it happens. And then a real bad turnover in the neutral zone with 1 second left in the first period. Down go the Bruins 2-0, and they never recovered.
No.
And the Blues did what you're supposed to do. And look, this is why I think most people think the biggest 2 words in sports are Game 7. It brings in casual fans. It brings in people who otherwise wouldn't be watching this game. And I found it very interesting the way that the NHL kind of changed the broadcast for Game 7. I'm a hockey fan in the sense that I know the sport. I don't follow it closely anymore because I follow other sports, but I know the sport. I know pretty much what's going on. I know what icing is. I know what a power play is. I can follow the game. I can see the puck. But what was funny was coming in, Mike Emmerich, who calls the games for NBC, he starts the series by saying, or starts the game by saying, well, and there is Zdeno Chara and the Blues captain who have C's on their jerseys, and C's stand for captain.
I heard that. I was like, I'm sitting here, I'm at my work computer, I'm playing this in the background, and I'm like, thank you for pointing that out. Yeah. I'm pretty sure we figured that out on our own.
But think about that though, right? If you've got fans who are not sports fans coming in, Game 7, again, it's on NBC, so it's on one of the big 3 networks.
Right.
That might be something you don't know. And
honey, what does the C stand for? He's really cool.
He is cool. And Zdeno Chara especially is really cool. For those of you that don't know,
dislocated jaw.
He had a broken face.
Came off.
He had a broken face.
They taped it back on and let him play the rest of the series.
He had a broken face.
Yeah.
Broken face. I'd be questionable for life with a broken face.
Yeah.
He's out there playing hockey. These guys are absolute studs. They all are. I mean, hockey players are the toughest
At first
guys.
we thought it was broken. I mean, his jaw came off. And they like taped it back on.
I don't mean broken, like bone broken, but his face was broken.
Yes.
It was broken.
He broke his face.
I mean, if you watched him, he had a big bubble on his head to protect his broken face. And he's out there playing hockey in what's probably his last game. Which is sad because Zdeno Chara is a very good, he's huge. He's 6'9", 230. He's a monster of a man.
I promise you, I'm not basing this on anything that I've heard or read or any sort of rumor mill. You looked at the way he reacted, not only at the end of the game, but in the line, which I still think is the greatest moment in any sport anywhere. You don't see this anywhere else. At the end of every playoff series, the 2 teams get in lines like they do in Little League and congratulate each other for a good series.
Right.
I think that's the greatest moment in sports ever, especially at the finals. In the line, at the end, when, he was like, okay, well, I'm going to raise my stick because, we want to say thanks to the fans. And then I just want to get the hell out of here. Yeah. He looked like a guy who had just played his last game.
I agree. And they asked him about it. He's obviously answered that he hasn't made any decisions yet. And that's good. You don't want to answer those questions right after a really tough loss in Game 7. But again, and it wasn't just to see. Mike Emmerich was going through different parts of the game, which, just even as a sports fan, they're going to face the puck off and then they're going to try to score goals. No kidding. Is that how this is going to work? I mean, they really dumbed it down.
Right.
And I've thought about other things like in the Super Bowl, they do explain really basic things about the game of football because, people who have tuned in for the commercials also have to watch the football game in between. So I think that's interesting that in an ultimate game situation, be it a Super Bowl or Game 7, the networks obviously have noticed we have to explain this to the big dummies that don't know what's going on. So the Stanley Cup Finals, a really good story for St. Louis. I feel good for the city. Spent some time in Missouri. Good sports fans. They lost their football team a few years ago. The Cardinals are always, kind of the toast of the town, but the Blues, congratulations to them.
Yep. I'll tell you the one thing that got me, and not only about the entire series, but Game 7 especially. Like you said, Boston did everything they were supposed to do. Except St. Louis won the takeaway game. When you look at how St. Louis fought for pucks in the open ice, they took it away from Boston more than Boston took it away from them. And that's what you've got to do. They still won, and I contend, they still won the possession game. If you can't possess the puck more than the other guy, you're not going to get. They took many more shots, but they did not have as many scoring opportunities.
Right.
They were just throwing pucks on net, and it's like throwing a bowling ball down an alley and hoping you get a strike.
Right. Well, but that is, in hockey, that is a common playing. If you have the puck on your stick, you have a better chance of putting it in the net. And that's kind of the old school version of it. Now new school would say control the puck, dump it into the corners, get it out, keep it at the point, and again, control possession. But that's not always useful either if you're not getting shots on goal, because you allow, teams to park the bus, if you will, to play in front of the goal. It sometimes works better if you shoot in an odd man situation, more pucks may go in. Listen, this was hockey 101. The hot goaltender, Bennington, beat the cold goaltender. That's hockey 101. And for it to happen in a game 7 is unfortunate for the Boston Bruins, who were probably, air quotes, the better team. But St. Louis
I'm astonished that Bennington did not win the Conn Smythe.
O'Reilly was so good. Goal assist in 3 straight games to win a championship. You have to give it to him.
O'Reilly was better on the ice, but I really thought that this was won on Bennington's shoulders.
Yeah, hockey is one of those sports though where tradition matters. Maturity, I guess maturity is the wrong word. Longevity matters. Ryan O'Reilly's been around this game a long time. He's one of the most respected players in the league. He was a Buffalo Sabre for a while, so I rooted for him. And the Sabres screwed up letting him go for Jack Eichel. I mean, obviously Eichel's a great center. Would have loved to have O'Reilly on that team on line 2. Wow, did we just get hockey nerdy? Point being, I think O'Reilly deserved it. Bennington deserved it. You're going to give it to Bennington. We got about 5 minutes before break. If you want to call the show, we still have time for that. This segment, 234-250-110. You can text the whole show as well. Love to hear your guys' thoughts on what we've covered. One thing I did find interesting, again, this is championship weekend. We had a Stanley Cup. We had the NBA Finals. And early in this week, on Sunday, we had another demonstration of greatness by Rafael Nadal. Rafael Nadal, I want to be as good in life at anything as he is at playing tennis at Roland Garros in Paris, France. Rafa Nadal is 93-2 at Roland Garros. He now has 12 French Open titles. He has 12 of the last 15. Okay, he destroyed the era's best player, probably the best player ever in the semifinals, Roger Federer, in straight sets. And then he played who maybe, and he's not the next Rafael Nadal, but he's a very good young player named Dominic Thiem. From Austria. He beat him in 4 sets. And what was funny about this match was Rafael Nadal loses the second set. Everybody's getting behind this youngster, Dominic Thiem. Dominic Thiem didn't score a point through the first 4 games of the third set. A point. And Rafael cruised to another French Open championship. And it's interesting about this run that Rafael Nadal is on. The French Open is played on clay. Clay is the most unique surface that tennis is played on. I have played tennis on clay. It is literally like playing it on ice. It is very slick. It is very dirty. It is fun to make angels in, like snow angels. Not so fun to play tennis on if you value your ankles at all.
And they're always wearing white, and it always bothered me. And it's like, okay, you're wearing these pristine white shorts and shirts, and you're playing on a surface that you'd have to wash your clothes 5 times to get that stuff out.
Right. And look, the other Grand Slams, 2 of them are played on hard courts. There's really not much of a difference between those surfaces.
And the others played on grass.
Wimbledon's played on grass, but that's no longer a difference maker anymore. It used to be, because serve and volley was a part of the game. The equipment and the athleticism of these players has basically made grass also like hard court. So Roland Garros is a very unique surface, and Rafa Nadal, again, 93-2 with 12 of the last 15 championships on that clay. He has 18 overall. He's won at least one in every venue. It's not just a clay guy. There were guys in this sport named Gustavo Kuerten, who could only win on clay. Thomas Muser could only win on clay. Rafa can win on them all. He's just super, super great on the red dirt.
He could win on styrofoam. Let's not kid ourselves.
I want to see that match. And look, this is the kind of dominance that if Rafa Nadal was an American, first of all, he had a funny name for American, but tennis would be a sport to follow, right? I mean, if we had a guy who was dominating at this level, tennis would be a sport. We had Andre Agassi, who I think won 8 Grand Slam tournaments, and he was on everything. He dated supermodels. He had,
he was on the Wheaties box for like 10 years.
Yeah, Canon had him as a sponsor, but this guy is twice that at least. Unfortunately, the U.S. sucked at men's tennis right now. It's been since 2003, almost 20 years, over 15, since an American has won a major. The American men right now all suck. And it sucks relative term. I mean, at the world level. Look, John Isner is ranked near the top 10, but that's about it.
And the Williams sisters are on their way down.
Women's tennis is different. I think women's tennis in the U.S. has a more storied history, and even especially recently. But go beyond that with Chris Everett and Billie Jean King. I think they just have a more storied history in the sport than men's tennis. But the men's game in the U.S., other than Isner, who's 6'10" and kind of a novelty, he's good on grass and not great anywhere else. No other man in the top 40, and there's really nobody coming up. The point is, Rafa is one of the best players ever, dominating the sports for best events, one of the sport's best 4 events, and nobody really cares in the U.S., and that's kind of sad because it really is a great sporting achievement, and I think it deserves credit, especially in a week where we had, kind of an upset with Toronto, a huge upset with St. Louis, and it's good to see a dominant player do what dominant players should do.
I remember, I cannot tell you what year it was, but I was very young, so it had to have been like late 70s, early 80s, that Bjorn Borg and John McEnroe played in the Wimbledon finals on the 4th of July, and it was a huge deal. I mean, It was carried on NBC, and everybody watched it, and it was covered, cut page to page on every news outlet.
There were 2 golden eras in men's tennis. The era you talk about in the 80s and then the era in the 90s with Sampras and Agassi. We're far from that. And this guy, Rafa Nadal, and really also the other big 3, Novak Djokovic and Roger Federer, are light years above the guys that carried those American eras.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to take a break. Please give us a call. Phone lines are going to be open next segment, 234-200-5110. You're listening to Cinderblock Sports on SKO Radio.